So before we move on the statistical test, there are a few of the assumptions that needs to be fulfilled, and from where this assumption will come. So assumptions, I mean here that there are few criterias before you jump onto a statistical test. A few of the criteria need to be fulfilled. So we have started. We have validated our questionnaire. We have this check the reliability using the Cronbach alpha method or split half parallel form. Now, and also we talked about sampling. Now, once you have identified your sampling, the next is that you go for data collection. After data collection, now you have to decide which statistical test you have to apply. So most of the time I have seen people that, okay, I want to apply t-test, I will apply t-test. I want to apply ANOVA, I will apply ANOVA. I want to do regression, I will do regression. No, this is not the case. Statistical test and your choice of the statistical test has to come from a few rules. So for that we make a decision tree that on the basis of that decision tree only we uh, arrive at choosing a statistical test. Let's see what this decision tree looks like. So are you able to see this?
Yes, sir.
So I'm just taking simple example of a t-test. Now, let's say first I won't choose that I have to go for independent sample t-test or the pair type sample, which is known as dependent sample t-test. So now let's consider that I have a case where I have a dependent variable and an independent variable. Now my independent variable is categorized into, is having two categories. One case could be that your two categories could be independent of each other, means they don't have similar characteristics like male and female. I want to measure attitude of people towards their work life balance, where people are divided into two groups, male and female. Okay. So I have a dependent variable. That dependent variable is work life balance. And then I want to measure this on my sample, where my sample has two categories. Now, what to do? So, first thing I'll see that whether these two categories are related or not. If these two categories are not related, then further I will check, means it will make a case of independent sample. Then I'll check whether I have taken my data on a metric scale or a categorical, whether my data is metric or categorical. Yesterday, I have explained about the metric data and the categorical data. So normally, if you have taken the data on nominal or the ordinal scale, that is a categorical data. If you have taken your responses on an interval scale or a ratio scale, then that is a metric data. And already I told you that if your data is a categorical data, it will tend to be skewed. It won't follow normal distribution, and you need not to check also. You just simply go to the non-parametric test. So let's assume that your data is a metric data. Now, if it is a metric data, then you will go for testing its normal distribution, whether the data is normally distributed or not. We will just do a hands-on about how to check this normal distribution. Now, if your data is not following normal distribution, again directly jump to the non-parametric test. If it follows a normal distribution, since this is a case of independent sample, means your both the groups that you have, they are independent of each other. So you have to also check that whether the work life balance phenomena that you are using, whether it is equally distributed among males and females or not, or in both of the two groups, the concept that you want to measure whether it is having equal means distribution among both the groups or not. Otherwise, if it doesn't have equal distribution, what will happen? That your result will be erroneous. You can say that okay, the work-life balance is better in males as compared to females, which may be the case or may not be the case. But the result you cannot say confidently that it is free of error because there is no equal representation. So to check this equal representation, you have to check for Levin's test of homogeneity of variances. Even if at this stage, though it's not much necessary, but normally you should go for this Mann-Whitney test. If this condition is fulfilled, satisfied, then go for independent sample t-test. However, in some of the cases, your homogeneity of variances, if you check, you will find that there is no homogeneity. What we also known as homoscedasticity. So, if there is homogeneity, we'll say that there is homogeneity. Homogeneity is the term means alternative to the homoscedasticity. We use homoscedasticity or homogeneity and heterogeneity. If there is no equal variances, then this will be the case of heterogeneity. Now choice is yours. You can apply the Mann-Whitney test, or if you want to apply independent t-test, then when you apply independent t-test in the next module, you will see it gives you two p-values. One when equal variances is assumed, another when equal variances are not assumed. So if your the data set doesn't have homogeneity of variances, then you will report the results from equal variances not assumed. If it is following Levin's test of homogeneity, there is homogeneity in variances, then you can go for equal variances assumed. But the first thing is that you have to check for normal distribution. So what error we normally do that we just decide that what statistical test we are going to use. But no, you have to make a decision tree that okay, if this situation is fulfilled, then I will arrive at this test, else I will go for its non-parametric equivalent. Similarly, there are a lot of tests. I'll just share with you. If I have, let me check. I should be having that. There is a chart. Just hold on, please. So are you able to see this? So,
Yes, sir.
so this is a full-fledged chart to decide on which statistical test you should use. So like how many outcome variables you have. Outcome variables means how many dependent variable you have. What type of outcome it is. It is continuous or categorical. If let's say, let's take one case that if your this outcome is one, means you have one dependent variable. That dependent variable is continuous, means metric. And then how many predictor variable means independent variable. So if you have two or more independent variable, let's take this case. So one outcome variable you have, which is continuous in nature, means you have taken dependent variable, the questionnaire that you have made for measuring the dependent variable, that is on a continuous scale. Then you have two or more independent variables. Your independent variables, whether they are categorical or continuous or mixed of that. So let's assume that the case that they are again your categorical variables are also continuous. Then another question, that second categorical predictor, how many categories? So since we don't have that case, we have two or more categorical variables, and we have two or more predictor variable continuous in nature. And does data means assumptions for parametric test means normality? If it is normally distributed, then go for multiple regression. Let's say your data is categorical in nature, and if it is a categorical predictor, the same participant or different set of participants, let's say you have different set of participants, means they are unrelated to each other, and it follows the normality distribution, go for independent, factorial, ANOVA, or multiple regression. If they are the same participants, means there is no there is no separate groups, on the same groups you have performed, okay, and it follows the normality distribution, then go for factorial or repeated measures ANOVA. Okay, like this you have to decide on. I will share with you this decision tree. So I'm just taking one simple example of a decision tree, that how we use the decision tree. Now second case is that if you have dependent samples, means the categories that you have, they are from the same population, they are not different in nature. Then again you will check whether your data is categorical. If it is categorical, directly move on to the non-parametric test, which is Wilcoxon test in this case. If it is a metric data, then further continue to check for normal distribution. If again here normal distribution is not followed, then go to the non-parametric test Wilcoxon. If it is followed, then go to the paired t-test. This is how we arrive at a statistical test. Am I clear on this part?
Yes, sir.
Any confusion? This is how we make a decision tree. And I'll share with you the entire this decision tree for all the statistical tests that is applied on SPSS. Okay. Now the first thing that I talked about is that we have to check the normal distribution. So metric data, categorical data, already I have told you earlier that in case of metric data, means if the data is taken on an interval or ratio scale, it's metric. Then if it is taken on a this nominal or ordinal, then this is a categorical data. Now next step is to test for normality distribution. For checking the normal distribution, we have two numeric methods and two graphical methods. So first I'll be going for a numeric method. So I have opened a file. This is named as, or I'll open it again. Just and I'll request you people that you also open that file already that is there. That is an Excel file, so I will select Excel over here, and my file is, yours might be located somewhere else. I have saved my file in D drive. So simply check this normal distribution underscore 1.xlx. Open this file. Now this file is open, and it is actually the calculation of serum protein from a group of participants. The serum protein have been taken, and this is taken on a ratio scale. Since it's a metric data, we will go for checking our assumption of normal distribution. If it had been non-metric or categorical data, then no need to check even for the normal distribution because it won't be normally distributed. So if you have taken data on interval or ratio, that is the metric scale, then only check for normal distribution. So we have two type of test. One is known as one sample Kolmogorov-Smirnov test or one sample KS. Another one is Shapiro-Wilk test. Now, Shapiro-Wilk test, if I talk about, it's a more powerful test statistic than one sample Kolmogorov-Smirnov. Only limitation is that Shapiro-Wilk is unable to render accurate results when your sample size is large. So normally if you have a sample size more than 50, go for one sample, go for one sample KS or one sample Kolmogorov-Smirnov. So let's see how it works out. So go to analyze, and then in non-parametric test, if you have SPSS 18 and above, you will find this non-parametric test legacy dialogues, and then one sample KS. If you have SPSS 18 or below that, then directly non-parametric test only. Here you can see one sample KS. So select one sample KS. Put it in the test variable list. We want to check the normal distribution, so already it's by default it is there, normal. Select OK. Now here you can see something like written test distribution is normal. Can you tell me, anybody from this table, what does it mean? Anybody? Can you tell me the output, the results from the output? Yes, please.
So it is normally distributed because it is 0.07, I believe.
So what is the thumb rule for test statistic? It's 0.07. So what should be actually? Yes. Okay.
It is normally distributed. It is.
So the
On
p-value should be greater than 0.05. So over here the test statistic is greater than 0.05, that is 0.07. So we can say that the data is normal from the p-value.
from the p-value. And what is the p-value here? What is
So the p-value over here, we can say it is test statistic, which is 0.07, which is greater than 0.05.
So the
Want to-
p-value is 0.200, I think.
Yes, that is the p-value. So a null hypothesis says, and believe me, this whatever it is written, test distribution is normal. This is not the output. This is a null hypothesis framed by the software. In every case, you'll find. Let's check this. Yesterday I filed. I have opened a data set. Now this SPSS anxiety questionnaire, and using these four variables, I have told you that they are not normally distributed. Let's check these. Even there, it will be written like this. So you can go to non-parametric test, legacy dialogues, one sample case, select all these four. Now here also, see, it is written test distribution is normal, but it does not mean that the test distribution is normal. Here also the test statistic is more than 0.05, but finally your test distribution is not normal because we see this one, p-value, okay. Now, what I'm saying that the test distribution is normal, this is the null hypothesis. And don't have a kind of I have seen people that they have the assumption that null hypothesis is always negative in nature. No, null hypothesis is not negative in nature. It's the negation of the theory that you want to test. Let's say a lot of studies says that class attendance has nothing to do with the student performance in the examinations. Now this is lot of studies says. In this case, what would be my null hypothesis? Lot of studies says that there is no relationship between class attendance of a student and his performance in exams. So if I frame my null hypothesis that class attendance has nothing to do with the performance, if I want to make it a negative statement, if this is my null hypothesis, say I'm just saying the same thing which previous studies have said. There is no point in testing. Why I will test? So here my null hypothesis will be negation of the existing theory, because we want to test on our sample that whether it stands true or not. So we negate the previous, whatever the assumptions or whatever the theories are given by the previous studies. In our assumptions or in our hypothesis, we negate this to test whether it stands true in our sample or in our population or not, because that study might have been done on different samples or different population. So in our case, the test, our null hypothesis will be that there is a relationship between class attendance and students' performance in exam. An alternative to it will be there is no relationship. So negation of existing theories or existing results from a population is your null hypothesis, because you want to test it in your own sample and you want to free it from the biasness. That's why you test the null hypothesis. We never test the alternate hypothesis. So alternate hypothesis is always the negation of existing theories. It could be that means it need not to be always a negative statement. So here the null hypothesis, let's take our case. Here the null hypothesis is that test distribution is normal. Now you might be knowing this thumb rule that if p is less than alpha, where alpha is your significance level, so then reject null hypothesis. Now in this case, our p is greater than, we have put alpha at 0.05. In our case, you can see that our p is greater than 0.05. If p is greater than 0.05, we cannot reject the null hypothesis. We have to accept the null hypothesis, and null hypothesis was test distribution is normal. So finally, it will yield us the result that test distribution is normal. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So simply look at this p-value. If it is more than 0.05, then your test distribution is normal. Else it is not. Now, second statistical method is Shapiro-Wilk, and along with it, I will do the graphical method also. So Shapiro-Wilk, there is no direct means you won't find any of the this tab showing you the Shapiro wheel. So this explore is of very much use in SPSS. You can means have a lot of commands in this. So you will go to descriptive statistics, explore, and okay, I'm working on this. I have to work on this data set. Yeah, analyze descriptive statistics, explore, select this in the dependent list, go to the plots, stem and leaf, be it there, select normality plot with test, click on continue. Okay, it will give you an output. Now see, it will give you both Kolmogorov-Smirnov and Shapiro-Wilk. Now we want to check through the Shapiro-Wilk method. So if you see what is the significance level, 0.581. Again, it is more than 0.05. We cannot reject the null hypothesis. And from this, we can conclude that our test distribution is normal. Now, when you will perform this, it will also give you a QQ plot, normal QQ plot. This is a graphical method. See these data points, if they are very close to this diagonal line, then you can say that the test distribution is normal. So we had one means only one variable we have tested. So you can see that these all the data points will be close to this vertical line. So you can say that the test distribution is normal. Apply the same on our previous data set. Let's say question number 1. I am taking that SAQ, descriptive statistics, explore. I am taking this as dependent list. In plots, normality plot with test. Continue. Okay. Now you see this normal QQ plot. In this case, these data points, these two are very far from this diagonal line. Okay, so if they are far from this diagonal line, means test distribution is not normal. So you can check with numerical method also, and you can also check with the statistical method also. You can cross validate your results through these. Now, second graphical method that we have is the best one, that is the histogram. So for histogram, go to analyze descriptive statistics, select on frequencies, take this variable, click on charts, select histogram. The moment you select histogram, this option gets activated, show normal curve on the histogram. Click on continue. Okay. Now you can see this is a perfect normal distribution. So by looking at the graphs, means QQ plot and histogram, or through Shapiro-Wilk method or one sample Kolmogorov-Smirnov method, you can check whether your test distribution is normal or not. Now our first assumption, first criteria is fulfilled for parametric test. Now, what if I want to? Now, this is the case when you are testing normality under a very this standard condition. What if you have to check normality in between two groups? Your data is divided into two groups, and then you have to check the normality. So let's open for this another data set. So normal distribution underscore 2. Let's see what this data tells us. So now you can see now this serum protein is there, but now another variable is created, male and female. Means we have tested, previously we have tested the serum protein, we have taken the data, collected the data, but we have not segregated data on the basis of gender or into two independent groups. Now we have two independent groups. Here also we have to check the normality. So what to do if such is the case? Again, you will go to analyze descriptive statistics, explore, take this serum protein into dependent list and this male and female into this factor list. And then you select this plots. Okay, normality plot with test and continue. Okay. Here also, if you see the normal QQ plot, okay, you'll find that they are close to line. If you see the test statistic in both the cases in male and female, the significance level is 0.581 and 0.160, which is more than 0.05. Test distribution is normal. Here also, if you see with Kolmogorov-Smirnov, in male, the test statistic come out to be 0.200, and in female, it comes out to be 0.089. Again, your test distribution is normal. So if you want to check normality irrespective of distribution of your cases, then also you can check directly. If you want to check normality when your data is divided into different groups and you want to check that whether in each group the data is normally distributed or not. Let's say if data is normally distributed in male and it is not normally distributed in female, this will become the case where you cannot apply again. If you want to take groups, you cannot apply the parametric test. So in both the cases, it has to be normally distributed. So like this, you have to calculate the normal distribution through Shapiro-Wilk method, also through Kolmogorov-Smirnov method, or through this QQ plot method, or through histogram method. So first assumption is fulfilled. Now I have said that my independent variable is divided into, or my sample is divided into two groups, where one is male and female, another one is female. So characteristic of male differs from the characteristic of female. They are not dependent of each other, rather they are mutually exclusive or independent of each other. So if I want to apply a statistical test, we have to check that whether there is a homogeneity or homoscedasticity in the variances or not, because we have two different groups. So for that, we test for Levin's test of homogeneity of variances. And there you make a again you have to make this hypothesis. Let me write or some, just hold on, let me write. So here, if I have to check for Levin's test of homogeneity of variances, again I have to make a hypothesis that the null hypothesis will be that sigma 1 is equal to sigma 2, means here sigma is the standard deviation and null alternate will be, means sigma 1 is equal to sigma 2. That means there is no significant difference between the two groups that we have taken in the standard deviation. And here I will say that sigma 1 is not equal to sigma 2. Okay. So means there exists some difference between both the variances. And we will check this hypothesis by Levin's test of homogeneity of variances. Now let's see how we do this. So for that, I am taking this data set. File open, data. This Levin test. Now here you can see that we have taken the serum protein and it is distributed among two groups, males and females. And I want to test that whether this serum protein is equally distributed among male and female, with equal representation of both the groups are there or not. And this can be tested through Levin's test of homogeneity of variance. So our null hypothesis is that there is no difference in the variances or standard deviation, means that there is no homogeneity. So let's check. So for that you can go to this compare means one way ANOVA. You select the serum protein, you select your group, male and female, and just go to options. Here you will find homogeneity of variance test. Click on continue. Okay. Now our hypothesis was that sigma 1 is equal to sigma 2. That was our null hypothesis. That means that if standard deviations are same, means there is no homogeneity, there is heteroscedasticity. Sorry, there is, if sigma 1 is equal to sigma 2, then I'm saying that is, there exists no significant difference between the standard deviations of both the groups. If there exists no significant difference in the standard deviations of the both group, then there is homogeneity in there in the variances. Alternate hypothesis was sigma 1 is not equal to sigma 2, means that there exists some significant difference between the standard deviations of both the groups. And if there exists some significant difference between the standard deviations of both the groups, means that there is no homogeneity. So let's see this table. It is 0.161. It is again more than 0.05. We cannot reject the null hypothesis. We will accept the null hypothesis. And our null hypothesis was that standard deviation 1, sigma 1 is equal to sigma 2. If both standard deviations in both the group are same, that means that there is a homogeneity of variance. So like this, our two situations are satisfied, which are required for the independent t-test. We will conduct the independent t-test. Now, third assumption that we check, that is of the multicollinearity. That I will multicollinearity diagnostic is tested automatically when we do multiple regressions or linear regressions. So when I'll be conducting the regression part, then I'll be moving on to this third assumption, that is the multicollinearity. As of now, you should be very careful about the main assumption, that is the test of normality. And further, if your group is like such, if you have drawn your data from the samples which are heterogeneous in nature, or the groups you are mutually exclusive of each other, they are independent, then you will also test another thing that is known as homoscedasticity or homogeneity of variance through Levin's test of homogeneity of variances. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, one important feature of SPSS when I was discussing yesterday, that is of the syntax. So sometimes it might happen that this already I have told, whatever this is, since yesterday you can see whatever the commands I have run, these all are here. So if I have to run it again, I need not to select. Only I will just click on this tab and I will get to know that which were the tests that we have performed, and it will be in a hierarchical order. Means the latest one will be at the top and the last one will be at the last, at the bottom. So if I want to run that analysis again simply by variate correlation, and I can choose my data and do that. But sometimes what happens that either we have a SPSS version that does not support all the statistical tests. So for that, SPSS comes up with a very good thing that is known as syntax. You can write syntax. Syntax is just like simple line of code that you write, and this syntax has to follow some common rule like grammatical rules. For example, means every line will end with a full stop like that. So you can create syntaxes also, and if you see from the output, let's see, whatever is written before your output, this is the syntax. So if you are creating your own, saving your own syntaxes, what will happen? That if you want to modify something, means suppose if I want to, let's say, I perform the this one normality test between males and females. Now I want to perform the same again the normality test by removing this male and female. So what I have to do, I have to select the data again, I have to do everything again. But here if I have this kind of thing, I will simply change and I can run my, I will just do a few changes and I can run my analysis. So let's take this one. I'm copying this syntax. So I can save it. So file new and syntax. Now I am pasting this syntax. Now I wanted to run this normal distribution only on serum protein. I want to remove that. So I will not between male and female. So I will take this file, test distribution normal distribution 1. And here I'll remove examine variables by this, and I'll just run my command. Let's see what happens. Okay, some error has happened. Let's see what was my, okay, this one was the active data set. So I'll go to file, new, syntax, pasted it over here. I'm running this analysis. And again, you can see in the output, it has run the analysis again, made the histogram again. Means I need not to repeat these steps in this SPSS again and again. I can do modification in my syntax file. And the good part is that you can save this syntax file. Save as this syntax2.sps, and if I want to use it again, I can simply open it in SPSS, open syntax, the syntax2.spss, we have used this. Again, I'll run this. Again, the analysis will be run. So most of the times it is handy for you to, if you want to run the command again and again, okay, you can just miss this, whatever you have done through SPSS, just save it as a syntax, or SPSS has given a syntax file. I'll share with you that if you have to perform a particular test, what syntax you should use. Okay, so for cross tabulation, let's say this is the syntax. Okay, so most of the means sometimes you find that SPSS that like if you have to do discriminant analysis, so SPSS does not have any functionality to run the discriminant analysis. my version, at least my 22.0 version. So what I can do, I can just simply take the this syntax, run that syntax. Actually, it is the what happens in SPSS when you click on any command at the background, it runs its syntax only. So I can take the syntax from here for whatever I want. Let's say I want to do MANOVA, univariate MANOVA. Here is the syntax. I can simply take all this syntax, run it, and my work will be done. So this syntax is very helpful when it comes to doing this statistical analysis on SPSS. So I'm just once again repeating the procedure. If you want to run a syntax file, open, new syntax, type your code, run the command, and you can save it. And next time if you want to use, you can call that syntax file again by opening the syntax file and run it. It will be saved as .sps. You can run that syntax file and you can modify your commands, you can modify your codes. Okay. So it will make your work easier and faster as compared to going every time for clicks and this searching for the options. Now, the next thing is that I wanted to tell you. Okay, this we have already concluded the normality test and this homoscedasticity test we have. Now, moving on to building the charts or statistical analysis with graph, exploring your data with the graph. And for that, you have this SPSS chart builder. Okay. So in graphs, you have this chart builder, you can use it. So if you select this chart builder, you will see here different options. There is a gallery. This gallery will tell you about which kind of chart, means it will give you the option of which kind of chart you want to make. You can just double click it and select it. Then there will be the variable list where you can select your variable, which variable you want to choose. Okay, you can use this variable. And then you have this canvas. This is the main area in the dialog box where you can have a preview of your graph that is displayed. And then you have this drop zones. When you will make any graph, you will be having the drop zones, that is X and Y axis, where you can put your, means you can drag your variable that what you want to show. And there are two ways to build a graph. So the first one is by using the gallery of the predefined graph, and the second one is by building a graph on the element by element basis. So like this, the basic elements, you can choose that what you want to do. So these are the preset galleries, bar for the bar, line, and whatever kind of chart you want, you can use. Or if you want to build it step by step, then you can use these basic elements. So the most used this graph is the histogram. So let's go to just go to this chart builder and let's say select histograms. Now you will be finding that it has four kind of histograms. First one is a simple histogram. So this is a histogram which is used when you want only to see the frequency or scores of a single variable. Then second one is the stacked histogram. If you have grouping variable, okay, or if you have more than one variable, you can produce this stacked histogram. This is a frequency polygon. Okay, this displays the data as simple histogram, but it uses a line instead of bars. Rather than bars, it will just make lines. And then we have the population pyramid. And it is just like the stacked histogram and shows the relative frequency of scores in two populations, like that serum protein in male and female. So two different populations, what would be the frequency distribution in those two populations? So like this, you can make your histogram also. And let's make a histogram. So for that, I will open another data which I have just updated. I request all of you those who haven't downloaded, kindly download quickly these two files from the same Google Drive, chickflick.sav and jimmycricket.sav. Please download this, and once done, please let me know. Then we'll be moving on building the graphs and charts. Have you got this data set?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the variables are strategy, or means this is divided into two groups, 1 and 0, which means hard work or wishing on a star, and then success pre, that is their baseline level of success, and their success post, their level of success after 5 years. Okay, so this is the data. So and the scores are from 0 to 100, means complete failure to complete success. Okay, so we will just make a histogram. Now go to graphs, go to chart builder. Okay, and from here first select the success post. So yes, we will take this simple histogram first. So I'm taking this histogram. Now it's showing me the preview how the chart will be made. So on the x-axis, I will take this success post. Simply you have to drag and drop. And then a simple histogram I want to make. Okay, level of success after 5 years. And now you can see that histogram preview is there. And this is a preview only. So to draw this actual histogram, you have to select OK. And in the output, it will draw your histogram. Okay. Now, if you want to change something in your histogram, now this is the output. Now you'll see that this output doesn't have any labels, means what this histogram tells you. If you want to put some data labels, simply just double click it in any of the chart, and I think data label mode, only one thing is there, so data label mode is not there. So you'll just see this chart, and from here, yes, you can see all these data. And if you see the population pyramid, you can find from this population pyramid that who wished upon a star. There are two categories of the people. Okay, means one is the people who are hardworking, and another one is the people who are wishing to be a star. So now if I put in my chart this y-axis also I take. So in the graphs chart builder, already I had this strategy for success divided into two groups. Let me plot it on the y-axis and now select OK. You will find the bar, this histogram like this. Means who are the people who are wishing to be a star and who are the people who are wishing to be a hard worker. So if you just check this population pyramid, okay, you will find that those who wished upon a star, there is a fairly normal distribution centered at about the midpoint of the success scale, means around 50% people. And you can see that your data is normally distributed also. So through this histogram also you can tell some meaningful insights. Okay, this is a simple histogram. Then we have box plot. Okay, you can go for this box plot are also known as box whisker diagrams, and it is a useful way to display your data. When you make a box plot, let's first make a box plot, then I will explain that what does the center and other end means. So go to this graphs chart builder, click on OK, and then you can go for this box plot. Now here you can find different kind of box plots are there. So you can okay, before that we just we have made only one kind of histogram. Let's see another kind of histogram also. So here I have taken the strategy of success and kind of histogram since this one, because I want to know between different populations. So now let's see what is let's take a strategy for success here, split variable, because we have two groups, and here let's success after intervention on y-axis, drag and drop, and you can see when you have a kind of population where your means or the you have the data where data is divided into two or more groups, then you can make this fourth one kind of bar, which is known as the this population pyramid. So okay, and here it will tell you some meaningful insights. From here you can check the data and you can plot your this histogram, where it can give you the many meaningful insight that who are the people who are hard workers and how much they succeed, and who wished upon a star, how much they succeed, whatever the level of their success after 5 years. So like this you can plot different type of histograms. Another one is the box plot. So you can go to chart builder, select this box plot. Now let's take this simple box plot. There are three kind of box plots. A simple, first one is the simple box plot, then clustered box plot, and fourth one is the 1D box plot. So this simple box plot is used when you want to plot a box plot of a single variable, and different box plots are made for different variables. Then clustered box plot is the same as the simple box plot, except that you can select a second categorical variable on which to split the data. If you have groups, then you can use two groups, then you can use this second kind of box plot. And then you have 1D box plot. This box plot is used when you want to see a box plot for a single variable. Now, in the box first one, that is the simple box plot, again you are seeing the single variable. The only difference between this 1D box plot and the simple box plot is that the symbol and in the simple box plot, you can select means the categorical variable on x-axis. Here you cannot select any categorical variable on the x-axis. That is the only difference. And at the center of this box plots, what you can see means if I select, let's say, one of the box plots. So at the center of the box plot, there is a median value, and in the box you have the top and bottom, means this one, and again you will be having another one at below, which are the minimum and the maximum limit, and the center lies the median. So if you want to display the median scores, if you want to display the upper limit and lower limit, then you can go for box plots. So let's say, let's take this data file. So we have this category that whether people have wished to be a star or they worked hard to succeed in their life. And so we have taken this simple box plot. You can take this success post variable, means their success after 5 years, and drag it on the y-axis. And on the x-axis, you can select the strategy, whether they wish to be a star or they wish to be they worked hard. Now you will see the this preview, and now select OK and click this. Now you have the median values for both who wish upon a star and hard work, then their their success level. Now here you can see that this one is marked with 229 is marked with a asterisk. Now it is the extreme value, and it could be said that it could be an outlier. This shows this area, means this one, that top 25% scores. Okay, and this one, the lower one, because at the center is the median, this is the lower quartile, the center is the median value, and this is the upper quartile. So if I talk of this chart, means again the top 25%, this will show you the upper quartile, then median and lower quartile. This overall area will cover middle 50% people. Okay, and then the rest bottom, this will be the rest of the 25%. So if you want to show frequency distribution using charts, you can do it by box plots or any other things. Now normally when we plot this frequency in terms of pie charts, so we get the pie charts, but sometimes we want to label them. So you can do this by means I'm just taking descriptive statistics. In the frequencies, I am taking let's say level of success, and in the charts I want to build. See, it will give only a limited means frequency distribution will give you only limited kind of making a simple bar chart or pie chart or histogram. In chart builder, you can play with the chart builder and make different type of charts which you want. Frequency polygon or line chart or bar chart or different kind of pie charts. So let's draw a pie chart over here. Now we got a pie chart, but actually this data is not labeled somewhere. Means here you have to see different values, that what does the color means. So you simply double click on it and you have this pie chart. Simply click on this data label mode and just go on clicking. It shows 5, 6, sorry, 6 is shown, 4, like this. Okay. So like this you can label also. So what is the frequency? You can just label like this. You just click on it and you can label it. So the moment you close it, it will be reprinted over here. So by this you can create the pie chart and the label over your graph. Now, so we are with the charts also we are done. Now coming to some theoretical aspect of statistical test. So when we do this hypothesis test, we take this p is less than alpha, reject null hypothesis and all that, those things, or homogeneity of variances and all those things. But what does actually this normal distribution, homogeneity of variance, what exactly this means? Okay, so just I'll be sharing my slide. Just hold on. Let's be more clear on the homogeneity of variances and normal distribution. Okay. So is this visible? Is this PPT visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, so these are the basic assumptions for applying in a parametric test. First one is the normality, we have already discussed. Homoscedasticity, we have already discussed. No outliers. Outliers, how to check for the outliers, how to treat them. Yesterday we have seen. Samples should be drawn from a randomly from the population. That then only it will be more of a normal distribution. This is the fourth assumption, and fifth is the multicollinearity. These four assumptions are must for any of the parametric test. Multicollinearity is a assumption is only tested in case of correlation or a regression. Why? Because in correlation we check what is the correlation between the variables. So there is a high multicollinearity. This will again be a problem, and particularly in case of regression. Because in regression, what we do, let's say we had taken three predictor variables or independent variables x1, x2, and x3, and one outcome variable y or the dependent variable. And we want to check that which would be the strongest predictor of y, or how this model x1, x2, and x3 will be, means what how we can model these x1, x2, x3 into an equation so that we can predict the outcome. So normally we write it as y is equal to b0 plus b1 x1 plus b2 x2 and b3 x3. Now the thing is that if suppose x1, x2, x3 are highly correlated to each other, Means they are showing their effect on each other. This is the problem of multicollinearity. What will happen? We won't be able to determine that whether x1 is the better predictor of the variable y, or x2 or x3, because if they are highly correlated, then it could be case that the properties of x1 are not its own properties, they are derived from the variable x2 or x3. So there needs to be no multicollinearity between the variables. So we will check this multicollinearity once we move on to the regression. So decision tree, I think we have just done. Now, what are the independent samples? What are the dependent samples? And what are the replicates? So I'm taking this example of a rat. So we took two rats. To one rat, we gave the normal diet. To another rat, we fed a lot of cheese, or means a very rich diet, and then took their weight. Now you can see that the rat which was given the normal diet is weighs 5 kg, and the rat fed with lot of cheese weight 15 kg. Now, though they are rats, but their categories differs. One was fed with lot of cheese and weighed 15 kg. Another one was fed a normal diet and its weight was 5 kg. Means they don't have any association or their characteristic, because the characteristic which we want to measure is weight and their diet, and both differs. So in this case, both are mutually exclusive of each other. So this is a case of independent sample. So normally, if you have like male and female, then their characteristic will differ. Suppose if you are doing some organizational behavior study where you have taken different levels of officers, okay, high senior level managers, middle level managers, lower level managers. So again, that will be the case of independent sample, because their characteristics are mutually exclusive of each other. Now, second case is that we took the rat who was weighing 15 kg, and now we put it on a normal diet for, let's say, 3 months. So initially its weight was 15 kg. Then after the treatment, that is putting it on a diet for 3 months, its weight became 10 kg. Now in this case, you can see the rat is the same. Only what differs is the diet and time. So this is a situation known as pre and post. So if you have situations like pre and post, then this is the case of dependent sample or paired sample. So like if you want to do some longitudinal study, means a study over a period of time, then you can take, your case will be of dependent sample, you can apply dependent t-test. So basically we have cross-sectional study and longitudinal study. Cross-sectional study is when you are studying any phenomena at one point of time, and when you are just studying the phenomena over a period of time, let's say stock performance of a particular company over a period of time. Now company is the same, only you are just checking its stock performance over a period of time under different situations. Okay, that will be the case of dependent sample. Now this is dependent and independent sample. Now third case is that we have taken a one rat, and we have fed him the cheese, with the cheese or the diet, whatever we have chosen for them, and in one single day we have taken its weight over, let's say in our case, 5 times in a day. Now you will see that their weight will vary, but not so significantly. So again, this is a situation of pre and post, but it cannot be said that this is the case of dependent sample. These are the replicates. Replicates are the situation when you are taking measurements in one single day, not at regular intervals. So this result will yield you nothing, because in one single day, if you are feeding him more and more, if you are feeding a rat more and more, means one single day you cannot derive some useful results. So these are the replicates, and this should be avoided in the data. So if you are taking some measurement, if you are taking situations like pre and post, take it over an interval period of 1, 2, or 3 days like that. In one single day, if you are taking the measurement, then it won't yield any significant result. They are known as replicates, and you have to take care that in your data there should be no replicates. Normally, it happens that when we take this independent sample or dependent sample, we also come across the replicates, but try to avoid if your data is having replicates, avoid it. Normal distribution means the first assumption, as you know, that here, let's say we have taken the height of each person in a population, plotted it on x-axis, and then the number of people we have taken. Now, if we see this normal distribution curve, it will tell us that we have very few small sized people, many average sized people, and a very few tall sized people. Now, this is normally distributed because people are either of short size or average height or large size. So, average height, if you talk of a perfect normal distribution, the average height or any of the means in your population, whatever you are taking, the number of average, let's say uh, I wish to take the data of this annual income of people living in my society. So if I want to have a normal distribution, it should have representation from all the groups. And how this representation will be plotted? If I talk of a perfect normal distribution, we will be having very few people having low income. We will be having very few people having very high income, and we will be many of the people will be having average income. So maximum people will be having average income. So that is the case of normal distribution. Now, what is the homogeneity of variance? Now, if I talk of the homogeneity of variance, so you see these two graphs. Both are normal distribution graph. One graph is, you can see, it's very steep, and another one is elongated. This means in the first case we have distributed we have taken samples from two populations, population 1 and population 2, and you can see that in one population the normal distribution curve is very steep and short. In another one, you can see that it is small but elongated. So first case is of no homogeneity, whereas second case is of the homogeneity. So if let's say we have drawn some sample from the population, one population is of male and another population is of female, and if we want to check that whether there is homogeneity or not. So you can see that in population 1 is much higher and smaller, the range is very small, whereas population 2 is lower and wider. Now you can see that these two populations are spread out differently. Both are normally distributed, but they are spread differently. So if we take the Levin's test here, we will formulate a null hypothesis that is the spread, that is the variance of the two populations equal. So we can see that the variances of the spread is not equal in the two populations. So we can say that there is no homogeneity. If the spread should have been the same in the two populations, if the spread could have been equal, then only we can say that there is homogeneity of variance. That's what by homogeneity of variance we mean. And if you have two groups mutually exclusive of each other, and if they show the homogeneity of variance, then only go for independent sample t-test. Otherwise, go for its non-parametric equivalent, that is Mann-Whitney U test. And this Mann-Whitney U test you can find in analyze only, non-parametric, in legacy dialogues, and this k-related sample. Okay, this is known as k-independent sample. This is, you won't find directly Mann-Whitney written somewhere. This will be the k-independent samples. Okay, and this will give you the output of, you will take the test variable. Let me show you. File, open data. So I had a file of about the homogeneity of variance. So let me take this. Let me just open. Okay, I have two groups. I'll simply go to analyze, non-parametric test, legacy dialogues, k-independent samples. So I'll take this serum protein and this grouping variable. Same means the same you do the independent t-test. Similarly, you will do the Mann-Whitney test, but only it is non-parametric. So minimum is, we have groups. Let me see what are the groups. Yeah, 1 and 0. So we have, or 1 and 2. Yeah, we have 1 and 2. Continue. Okay. Now this will give me whether my test hypothesis stands null hypothesis stands rejected or accepted. Sorry, this is Kruskal. Yeah, this is Kruskal-Wallis. Where is this? Kruskal-Wallis is the non-parametric equivalent of this one-way ANOVA. So two independent samples. Okay, this is this one, two independent samples. If you have K means if you have many independent samples, more than 2, then you will go for Kruskal-Wallis test. So if your data is not following normal distribution, there is no homogeneity, you have more than 3 groups, then you will go for the non-parametric equivalent of one-way ANOVA. We will be covering that one-way ANOVA and other things. So here I'll choose the same kind of thing. Define groups 1 and 2. By default, it is Mann-Whitney U test. Select, and it will tell me that whether my hypothesis stands accepted or rejected. So this is about Mann-Whitney U test. Similarly, if you have paired sample test, then you will go for this non-parameter. And if your data is not normally distributed, then you will go for its non-parametric equivalent, that is Wilcoxon test. Now, next week we have to start this t-test, but I'm just giving you a primer of what this one sample t-test is all about. So this one sample t-test determines that whether the sample mean is statistically different from a known hypothesized mean or not. Suppose if you have drawn some sample from a population, so you want to test that whether the mean from the sample is different from the mean of the population or not. Then in that case, you can do the one sample t-test. So normally this test is known as single sample t-test. And the variable used in this test is known as the test variable. So in a one sample t-test, the test variable is compared against the test value. You have a test value, you compare that whether your mean value is higher than that test value or lower than test value, where this test value is nothing but the mean value of the population or the hypothesized mean. And your data should again meet the following requirements for conducting this independent sample t-test. Your test variable should be continuous, means the outcome variable that you want to measure, that should be continuous in nature, means taken either on an interval or ratio scale. And scores on the test variable are independent of each other. Independent observation should be there. That means there should be no relationship between the scores on the test variable. Means each uh, observation that you have taken on different on every individual. You have drawn from every individual. From the same individual, you will not draw two observations. Okay, because if you will violate this assumption, it will lead to the inaccurate p-value. Then data should be drawn randomly from the population. Data should be normally distributed. There should be homogeneity of variances, and there should be no outliers. And normally we write the hypothesis like this, that the sample mean is equal to the proposed population mean, or sample mean is not equal to population mean. So first one is the null hypothesis, or second one is the alternate hypothesis, mu is equal to x and mu is not equal to x, where mu is the constant proposed for the population mean, your hypothesized mean, and x is the mean that you will calculate on your sample. So if I talk of this is the case or problem statement that CDC, Center for Disease Control, has conducted a survey, and from their result they have said that the mean height of the adult aged 20 and older is about 66.5 inches. And if we divide them into male and female, then it stands as 69.3 inches for males and 63.8 inches for females. Now we have to test that if the mean height of our sample data is significantly different, because now we have taken our data, our sample, and we have taken their mean height, and we want to test that whether it is different from 66.5 inches or not. Now this 66.5 inches is our test value. So our hypothesis will be that the mean height of the null hypothesis will be that the mean height of the population is equal to 66.5. So normally you write that there is no significant difference between both the heights, or normally we write there is no significant difference between this x1 and x2, or we write like this. This means that they are equal. Both the observations are from the population and from the sample are equal. So in our case, we will write like this. If we want to write statistically, then we can write that mean of height, that is x height, is equal to mean height of the sample is equal to mean height of the population, means x height is equal to mu height, which is equal to 66.5. So the mean height of the sample is equal to 66.5, and another alternate will be that the mean height of the sample is not equal to the mean height of the population, that is 66.5. And we can test it by using one sample t-test, where we will put the test value as 66.5. Similarly, if we have cases like, and we will do it. So this is one sample t-test. We'll do it in the next week. I'll share with you the data. Then another kind of, we have basically three kind of t-test, and they all come under one heading that is known as mean comparison. So mean comparison contains t-test and one-way ANOVA. And again, this t-test is of three types. That is one sample t-test when you want to test your sample against your population. Then we have independent sample t-test, where you want to measure your observations on your sample, where sample has been divided into two categories, and these two categories does not have any relation to each other. They are mutually exclusive of each other. Okay, so this independent sample t-test compares the mean of two independent groups in order to determine whether there is a statistical evidence that the associated population means are significantly different or not. Means whatever the sample mean you are getting means that whether they are different or not. So this is known as independent t-test or independent measure t-test, independent two sample t-test, student t-test, like that. And your data should again meet the same requirement as one sample t-test, that dependent variable should be continuous, independent variable should be categorical. Here your independent variable also needs to be continuous. Here independent variable is categorical, two or more groups. Only dependent variable is continuous. And you have cases that have values on both on dependent and independent variable. That means cases having values both on dependent and independent variable means there should be homogeneity of variances. There should be independence of observations. Okay. random sample should be there, normal distribution should be there, homogeneity should be there, no outliers should be there. The hypothesis is mu1 is equal to mu2. Means across male and female, the two population means are equal. If you are taking situations like male and female categories, or mu1 is not equal to mu2, means the two population means are not equal. You can write like this again, like mu1 minus mu2 is equal to 0 and mu1 minus mu2 is not equal to 0. That the difference between the two populations mean is equal, and the difference between the two population means is not 0. In the first case, it's equal to 0. In the second case, it's not equal to 0. And then you have to, since it is an independent t-test, you have to check for the homogeneity also. So you will write this hypothesis for Levin's test of equality of variance also. Means that I have shown you sigma 1 is equal to sigma 2, sigma 1 square is equal to sigma 2 square, and sigma 1 square is not equal to sigma 2 square. Or you can write it that sigma 1 square minus sigma 2 square is equal to 0, or sigma 1 square minus sigma 2 square is not equal to 0. Means the population variances of group 1 and group 2 are equal, and population variances of group 1 and group 2 are not equal. So if you are getting that population variances of group 1 and group 2 are equal, means there is homogeneity. You can say there is homogeneity of variance. In another case, if your null hypothesis is rejected, you will say there is no homogeneity of variance. So this is all about today. And in the next week, we'll be coming up with this comparison of means, that is all the t-test and the ANOVA. In between, I have shared with you a data set known as, these are the data sets. Levin test 1 we have done, Levin test 2, normal distribution 3, normal distribution 4. These are for your practice this week. You may use these data sets for your practice of understanding about homogeneity of variance and this normal distribution. And if you face any problem, you can ask me questions in the next session. So see you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir, there is a question from my side. If you can give 2 minutes to me.
Yeah, sure. Now I'm open. I'm open to questions. Please.
Okay, you have finished the session.
Today's session finished.
Okay, sir. Actually, my question is nowadays a lot of this Google form is filled.
Okay.
So what is how it is created